Hey, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. How are you?
Good, how are you?
Good, good. It's good to see you. Thanks
Yeah,
for being here.
yeah, thanks for having me on.
All right, what do you say we get started, huh?
Yeah, let's do this.
All right, Dwight, go ahead, introduce yourself for me. Tell me a little bit about yourself, where you're from, what do you play, your instruments. Give me all the goods.
Yeah, my name is Dwight McGlynn. I am the utility player and member of the band Old 60. Originally born and raised in upstate New York, and I've lived past going on 10 years here in Western North Carolina. My first introduction, besides recorder, I guess, is probably everyone's introduction to an instrument. I began playing French horn in fourth grade, and I continued that up until college. And then in high school, I picked up guitar, and I bartered with my neighbor. His name is Dave Maswick. He's very influential in my life. He was a member of the band called Blotto, which they had like I think the first or one of the first music videos on MTV called "I Want to Be a Lifeguard." But yeah, he's a multi-instrumentalist himself. But I would do yard work and to go over on Saturday and get a lesson from him. So I did that up until my senior year. I started studying classical guitar, and I ended up going to school for music education with a focus in classical guitar. Did that thing, and then I actually started teaching, and I taught for 7 years in the public schools here in North Carolina. And in conjunction with that, I gigged a lot just to try to pay the bills. Taught like community classes for App State, taught like ukulele and keyboards, I think, and I don't know, and guitar. And I also held a private studio. But I didn't start my steel journey until just after COVID. So
Wow.
yeah, I like looking back on kind of like my fascination with steel. I have like two key moments that I think about, and one of them is I don't know if you know Jack McLaughlin. He's playing with Waylon Wyatt now, and he played with Willow for a bit, but he's a amazing steel and guitar player. And I had my own project where I wrote songs. It's called Trouvere and released
Mhm.
them. And I made a record like during the lockdown, or about there. And and I hit up Jack and I was like, "Hey, you want to just like throw some more guitars on this? I'm kind of tired of my ideas."
Yeah.
And he ended up throwing guitar and steel on my songs, and I thought it was the hippest thing. Uh, yeah, it's funny. Me and Jack played. I don't remember the name of the festival out in Oregon, and but yeah, we were both playing. He was with Willow, and I was with Old 60, and I was like, man, like I owe a lot of the fact that I'm here today because of you. So that I had that moment where I heard steel in conjunction kind of with my own music, and it opened my eyes to like the versatility
Oh
of
yeah.
steel, and which a lot of people don't realize
Mm-mm.
how many genres have steel in it. And then the other moment is I'm a husband and a father, and
Hmm.
me and my wife before we had our daughter, they call it like a baby moon, but we
Hmm.
we were like, let's go on one last vacation, like just us before we have the limitations of a child, well, and the blessings, but the
Right.
limitations to travel with the child, yeah.
Sure.
And I had never been to Texas actually at that point either in my life, but we went down to Austin for a week and hung out there. And I can't remember the name of the honky tonk. I think it's like in SoCo or like, but I just remember going into the honky tonk, and it was Western swing. And I just saw
Hmm.
the people dancing, and steel guitar ruled. And I actually like went back to the Airbnb and bought a lap steel that day. So it would arrive like when we got back from that vacation.
Hmm.
And so then going with my like steel guitar journey, I played lap steel
Hmm.
for a year, and like through COVID is when I started learning. And here in North Carolina, I still taught. It was like online and then hybrid. So I was still getting paid whatever teachers get paid. But I
Right.
also was getting the COVID checks.
Hmm.
So I saved up the COVID stipend to buy my first steel. And I took some time with that. I joined the steel guitar forum
Hmm.
and did a lot of research and reading and kind of just tried to decide, what I wanted to do and what I wanted to get. And there's also like some really good videos out there and even more like on YouTube for if
Hmm.
anyone's watching and they're interested in trying to get into steel. Um, there's some great videos that just kind of talk about the important things and like help you kind of think about, like copendants and just probably stuff that you're ignorant to before you play a steel.
Sure.
That really helped me because, like the entry level to a steel is pretty high.
Yes.
I think like one of the videos, Hamilton Belk has a really good video out, I think, talking
Hmm.
about things to consider. But anyways, but yeah, I ended up buying a old Mullen from Fred Thompson, the legend. He's down in Florida, and I think he's in his mid 90s, I think, early 90s, and still plays out two times a week, I think, or something.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it's so inspiring. That's actually like one of the reasons why I thought I was like, the steel's a good investment because, when you're old, it's not like cool to be like a lead guitar player, but it's pretty hip to like look up on the riser and see like, an old legend just shredding on steel. So no,
100%.
yeah. Um, I'm just mostly kidding about that. But the thing is I ended up going with a U12. So
Hmm.
I play a uni. And I think he was like tried it out and he was going back to double neck or something. But
Hmm.
being my first steel guitar, like I didn't know the difference, because it's a kind of switch foot. My E is an F, my E lower, F raise is on my right knee independently.
Hmm.
Um, so yeah, it makes it kind of difficult for me to sit down at other like steel players or sit down with other steels that have just like the standard Emmons.
Right. Right. Yeah.
But that's all right. That's all right.
Hmm.
And also it's funny how 12 strings makes a big difference, like going between
Yes.
10 and 12. Yeah.
It does.
Yeah. Um, so like with the story with that too, I immediately started playing the steel. I think I like played a gig on my pedal steel like 2 days after I got it. Like I just
Wow.
jumped in and it was just with some buddies, like a local thing. And I
Sure.
was just padding.
Hmm. Hmm.
Um, but I kind of just shamelessly just went for it and practiced
Yeah.
rather obsessively. I was teaching public school at the time, like music. So I would, be at work at like 7:30 in the morning or whatever, teach
Hmm.
all day, do family stuff, practice a little bit, and then I would just like stay up and practice till I couldn't stay awake anymore. And I did
Hmm.
that for a while. And I guess similar to you, I live in like a rural area in North Carolina, and
Hmm.
there are some killer steel players out here for sure,
Sure.
but there's just not a lot of us. And that really gave me an opportunity to play with a lot of people. And that's actually, that's like I think probably with any auxiliary or like utility instrument, that is the toughest part is like being able to find a band that can fund the icing on the cake.
Right.
Um, so being able to kind of figure out how to be a hired gun and like fit your way in, I think is essential to the success of being a steel player. Whether that's like just learning how to learn tunes and styles quickly, but I think a lot of it just comes down to like listening and not playing over people and
Hmm.
knowing your part. But so
Hmm. That's
that
amazing.
yeah, that was a definitely something I had to and I'm still learning. It's like
Hmm.
listen to the other instruments on the stage and complement each other for sure. But yeah, so I ended up playing like I got to where I was like teaching and playing like 150 gigs
Hmm.
regionally a year and did that. And, to be honest, it got to the point where it was just really tough. a wife and a kid at the time, and here in
Sure.
North Carolina, like it just they don't pay teaching our teachers very well at all, to be frank. Um, so I was had to get out of it, and I was going to become an electrician, and
Hmm.
I got a call from my manager Davis, like while I was on a job site working with a fellow musician who also was a GC. He's like, "Hey, like, can you fill in this weekend?" And
Hmm.
so then I filled in with Old 60, and then I haven't left since, and became a member and have been able to record and write, and and we can go through that whole story. But that
Yeah,
I just want
that's
to
amazing.
mention Reed Connolly
Hmm.
is the reason for that. I
Hmm.
uh, well, it's we just played Cat Fry. Yeah,
Oh,
we
okay,
just
yeah.
played Cat Fry, and we were direct support for Charles Wesley Godwin, and
Yeah.
I just have always loved Charles, and I
Hmm.
loved Reed's playing on
Hmm.
his records, and now Amico, who's
Hmm.
my dear friends too, I'd like to say. Um, but yeah, it was like I think I just had posted me like I learned a couple solos that Reed did on the record, and I just posted them on Instagram. You know, and at the time, uh, I don't know if it's good or not, but I would sit down. Let me like back up a little bit, talk about
Sure.
like practice routine. But
Sure.
at the
Yeah.
time, I would just try to like learn different solos and different styles that I enjoyed, and
Hmm.
trying to piece together the neck. And what I would do is like I would sit down for like a practice session and work up a solo or whatever,
Hmm.
and then film at the end of my session, like film it and see if I can like nail it, and then or see how close I could get it. And then, I would just post it. And then for
Yeah.
me, it kind of became an accountability thing because
Hmm.
like kind of being musically more so isolated out here, it still felt like it still kind of gave me the pressure of an audience and like that extra motivation to, like put in the
Hmm.
extra percentage of effort. So I did that for a while, and I posted a couple of videos, and Reed saw it, and I
Hmm.
guess he saw something in it. And but he ended up giving me tickets to I live like near Asheville, just
Hmm.
outside a little bit. And so we saw Charles at the Orange Peel, and I met Reed there and was just like picking his brain about like how do you make this happen? Like
Right.
being a full-time touring musician, like how did you get into that? Because Reed was a professor
Yeah.
prior, and I also think he ran this penalty box, I think, for the Penguins or
Oh,
something.
how
Like, yeah,
funny. I didn't know
Reed's
that.
Reed is he's I consider him my work dad. Reed's
Hmm.
been just amazing to me, and I could probably just talk about him for like an hour. But
I actually had the chance to talk with him on my show, and no, Reed has been an influence to me as well. And I think he's come to influence a lot of our generation.
yeah, great person, great player. Yeah, he's the man.
So would you
But
mind talking just a little bit? I would love to hear, you kind of mentioned a little bit about, getting started with Old 60, which is amazing. Want to hear a little bit more about like your recording experience, your touring experience, and no, go ahead and tell us a little bit about your recording experience and where you see yourself going in the next 5, 10 years.
yeah, and I just real quick, because I'd be remiss to say another just a big influence and person who's really helped me out and poured into me is Kurt Ozon
Mm-hmm.
um, of Luke Combs. But so for recording prior to joining Old 60, I kind of built like I'm in my little home studio, songwriter
Which is
studio now.
awesome, by the way.
Yeah. I recorded a lot and even tried to make records with friends, like different projects around here. And then when I joined Old 60, it's like I already had things rolling. And Old 60 actually hired me because they needed banjo and some guitar and harmonies. And I remember I showed up to the first rehearsal and I was like, "Hey, like, is it cool if I throw like steel on this?" And they liked it. And so that was I joined right as I think Next to You like released and started touring with them. and then we did the Songs About You record, and I actually tracked my steel remotely for that because
Wow.
we were touring pretty heavily, and I those guys were in Kentucky at the time, and
Sure.
I'm in North Carolina. We were like, as the songs were coming in, I threw guitar. I played a lot of
Mhm.
guitars on that too, but I threw like different steel parts in there. I even tracked steel at in Charleston on Isle of the Palms in a beach house. I
Wow.
yeah, I tracked Memphis there, which I don't. I mean, and it was like I didn't have a laptop at the time,
Sure.
so I used my wife's MacBook and I used GarageBand, and then my quad cortex. I had captured my amp, and it worked. But the rest of the record, I think I might have used my Vegas 400, the PV Vegas 400, and
Hmm.
then I got Milkman the amp. I have the amp 100, which I essentially use exclusively now. But yeah, so I tracked Steel on, I guess, Thoughts of You and Memphis, and then
Hmm.
I tracked guitars on the other tunes. And that was kind of nerve-wracking because at that time, like Smoking a Light, I think it had been gold by then, but this was my first experience, like being like, this is my first experience tracking on something where millions
Oh,
of
sure.
lit, like people are listening, and
Hmm.
that got like a little mental, but I did it, and I guess I did a good enough job, you know, and it's like the way I played on that record is very vibey, like
Hmm.
which kind of fits the style. That was like kind of my first experience with that. And then we did our last full length record with Jakir King last year in his studio.
Hmm.
Um, and I had, you know, when I was making my own records and such, I would watch Jakir King on YouTube.
Hmm.
He's a legend, you know.
Yeah.
And he has like a lot of really great educational videos out there.
Hmm.
So that was nerve-wracking to be like in Jakir's studio. Like I think the world of this guy, and now I gotta
Right.
not make a fool of myself, you know. So no, but we tracked with Jakir the Smokestack Town record. And that was a really interesting process. So what Jakir, he called me up like a weekend before I went into the studio, and
Hmm.
it was me and Jacob and then some studio players.
Hmm.
And he was like, I want you to be like the top, like if you think about furniture and interior design, I want you to be like that piece of furniture that determines how the rest of the house is going to be
Hmm.
like designed. You know, he's like, I don't want you to go in there and fill up a bunch of space. Like, I want you to like try to help create the vibe of the song.
Right. Right.
So I tracked with bass and drums and steel, and on, you know, the tunes that I didn't have steel was guitar, but
Hmm.
that was tricky.
I bet.
Yeah, because it's not like a Western swing tune where I'm
No.
carrying the melody or anything. I'm playing like, you know, whale sounds and vibe, you know. But like what ended up happening from that is I had space to like write hooks
Hmm.
that maybe a guitar might do. And so I was able to kind of approach steel like in a different way than just like conventional function maybe it has. And so I tracked all over that record. Some of the fun ones, Watching Me Bleed was fun. I hadn't heard the song and just sat down and I think just did a couple takes, and that one's yeah.
I think that's super cool what you've been doing with Old 60. And I love y'all's work. And I know a lot of my friends do too, you know. And I've looked up to y'all and what y'all have been doing for the last few
I,
years. It's pretty neat to see.
I just thought of this. Um I think the hardest moment for Steele on the record, uh I wrote Nancy Avenue with Jacob, and I stayed at his house. That it was I got into Nashville on Sunday, and I think
Hmm.
we were tracking Monday. So I stayed at his house and we wrote it Sunday night. And we showed up to the studio, and Shakir's like, what songs do you want to hit today? And he said Nancy Avenue. And I was like, really? Like, we wrote that last night, but cool. Yeah. And I think that like the parts in it, aren't difficult or anything. But
Hmm.
I find for me, like the hardest thing to do is to like track instruments on a song I wrote.
Sure.
Um, but yeah, that was it worked. It turned out great, and yeah, I mean, it didn't do anything particularly special with it, but
You
yeah,
could
it's a
see it
different
being a
part of your
growing
brain.
moment. Yeah,
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 yeah, it's a
yeah,
different part of your brain. I think is the challenge.
yeah, yeah.
But yeah.
That's pretty neat. Where do you see yourself going? Where do you see yourself in like 5, 10 years? You still want to tour? Do you still want to record? Um, what are your goals?
Yeah, I mean, my favorite aspect of music, or like not aspect, but my favorite part, yeah, my favorite part of like the whole music thing is writing and recording.
Hmm.
It's extremely difficult, and and everything, like Russ Paul talks about how everything's like under a microscope.
Yep.
But and so that it takes a lot of skill and time, and I think experience to really master it.
Hmm.
But I love the challenge of that. So like where I see, I mean, I'm in old 60. Like I see us continually growing.
Hmm.
But more and more I'm having the opportunity and the joy to like track on other people's records.
Hmm.
Um, and I think, yeah, for sure, like a long-term goal is getting more and more into studio work in conjunction with, playing live.
Sure.
So that's like definitely a long-term goal.
Hmm.
And then also like just having a family and such, and also just the way bands grow, it's kind of like the bigger you get, honestly, the less you play.
Right.
But yeah, but having like, having a family and all, it's a nice balance to be able to like do studio work and be home
Sure.
that night, as opposed to wherever a tour takes you.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, that's like, continually recording on old 60 records and other friends' records is just kind of just want to keep it rolling,
Yeah.
and continually getting better. Right now I do a lot from my home studio. Uh, which I mean, what's your thoughts on that? It seems kind of like that's a necessity and probably the general way steel players are tracking more and more.
Hmm.
Um, is that
Yeah.
is that kind of your
It's true. Personally, I've done, recording and stuff for some local artists out of the Reno area, Um, and a lot of the work that I've done, it's been with my little Lenovo laptop, my Focusrite, and a Shure microphone, It's
yeah,
like it's easy. I have the capabilities to manipulate audio. I can send dry, wet tracks. I can send everything mono, stereo. Um, you know, Thankfully I have a couple of really unique pedals that allow me to just directly track, to my laptop through my sound card. And, as difficult as that might be, for studios, especially like in more rural areas, places that aren't like LA, New York, right? At the same time, I think it provides opportunity for further collaboration, among artists, among producers, among musicians as well. It makes the experience more comfortable. I've recorded in studio environments. You kind of talked about it. It can be kind
red
of
light
scary,
dimming. Yeah,
you know, really scary. Especially when you're in a room full of people that know their crap and you're just like, hi, like not that you're unprepared, right? It's a different environment than, a practice space, right?
yeah.
Um, and
Yeah,
so,
I definitely know that I go like if I'm in my home studio, I will go for something.
oh yeah.
Like I'll take a risk because
Oh, sure.
where recording with Shakira just live in a studio, I'm gonna make sure I can like nail it
Sure.
to not
Sure.
waste people's time. That's
Right.
definitely the biggest difference I see. Yeah.
Oh yeah. I know 100%. And I think, with everything being so easy now, at the same time there's kind of trade-offs, right? There's trade-offs to doing at-home recording. You don't have a engineer there, who can modify things. When things go wrong, I don't know about you, but like when things have gone wrong in the past, I'm calling up buddies and I'm like, "Hey, like what's going on here?" I don't really know what's wrong. Sometimes it can take more time. I've found like doing at-home recording, sometimes it can be distractful, it can take more time. Um Whereas, when you're in the studio and you're with a whole bunch of guys, you can roll through stuff pretty quickly if everyone knows what they're doing.
Yeah, I think, part of that is when you're tracking at home, you're wearing the producer hat,
Hmm.
you're self-producing and you're composing and performing. Where, if you're in a studio, then the producer's there and you can kind of just go with your gut reaction. And then if they don't like it, they
Hmm.
can steer you in a different direction. And then they kind of have the say of like, that's the one. And
Right.
it's hard to, you know, that's something that I've worked a lot on.
Hmm.
Sometimes like I'll look at a recording and it's like, I just did like four takes and the first one was fine. Like
Sure.
why did but it's like the it's the psychology of it,
Yeah.
of
Oh, yeah. No, 100%. Yeah. No, I mean, where do you see yourself fitting in the industry? I've tried to ask steel players, I mean, I'm a steel player myself, we're pretty close in age, and like, where do you see us fitting in the industry? Do you think steel and, multi-instrumentalists like us have a place? Will continue to have a place? Or do you think, with the rise of AI and new instruments and instrumentation, do you think we're just on the way out?
Hmm. So you're talking about like AI when it's yeah, I don't like to think about it too much. I mean, because I'm scared is why I don't. No.
Same here.
I don't know. I At the end of the day though, art is art and the humanity in art I think is what's so valuable. And I
Hmm.
think like the imperfections are to be appreciated actually.
Hmm.
Um and I don't know if AI can like replicate that better or not. I don't know. But coming from, I was a music educator and like yes, I was teaching my students, like technique and the fundamentals of theory and history, but it mostly felt like in more and more as the years went by, especially after COVID, it felt like I was almost a music therapist for them and I was teaching them how to use art to like store emotions and hardships. I mean, I remember like I had a grant, so 20, I had like 30 ukuleles, and so I would fourth and fifth grade class, I would teach them ukulele, and I was teaching them like a blues, like a 12 bar blues, and that was like a whole unit. Taught them how to play it, taught them kind of like the like how to like the basics of writing blues lyrics, and I was like, okay, now you guys go and write your own blues song. And I remember this one boy came up to me and he's like, I don't really know what to write about, but I really miss my dad because my mom and dad split up and I only get to see him like once a month. Is that something I could write about? And I was like, yes. And I was like, yes, like, and for what it's worth, like perfectly performed music is great, but I think as humans, like we need these communities as participants like listening, but also as participants of music performing and composing. Like I really hope that that doesn't go away because I think it's so essential to our humanity, to our mental health, to community. So I'm in no place to like predict how we're gonna fare, you know, but I have my hopes,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
And I mean if I guess I would just recommend, like try to live skinny and uh have some other skills that you know you can like fall onto in hard times, like financially.
Hmm.
Um, but it does kind of sadden me to think that we have to like fight to play music.
Hmm. I think the beautiful part about being a musician, though, is that somewhere, someone will always be listening, right? Um, whether that's digital format, analog format, you know, I think despite the looming fear and doom, right? I think we will always have a place, at least amongst each other. And I think I agree. I 100% agree, to have hope. And bless you, by the way, for being a music educator and what you've done as a music educator, that's amazing. And, hopefully maybe one day you'll go back into the classroom and, you'll be able to inspire kids to be able to pursue this path.
Yeah, and I hope to, but yeah, I mean, it's all a journey. So
Well, I appreciate your time today. I really do. But we're gonna wrap up here. Is there anything else you'd like to say? Like, would you like to say to inspiring musicians, artists, people out there like me, who are still players, and hope to one day grace the big stage? Is there anything you'd like to say before we close out today? Any people you want to thank or
uh, there's so many people I've wanted to thank, and I tried to mention them all in here. So I think like, for those of you trying to get better and such, surround yourself with community and try, just make connections. The steel community is such a special community that I find there's just so many people out there who are just helpful and more than really like a lot of other instruments, maybe because it's just a difficult instrument. But like, if you're learning, like don't like get in your head too much, like go for it, you know,
hmm
and get just a little bit better every day. And don't say no to opportunities. Like say yes. And if you're shaking your boots, like I don't know how I'm going to pull this off, it's probably a good thing because you're going to
hmm
grow a lot. And yeah, I think just go out and just make music. And if you allow that to kind of be the focus, it doesn't matter what size stage you're on,
hmm
because every stage size gets to become normal.
Right.
And at some point, you're probably going to start going back down to smaller stages. And I think, it is easy to kind of lose why you started doing this in the first place, like through the journey. So I guess, to summarize my two suggestions is to, just go and just make music
hmm
and take risks and don't forget why you
hmm
started.
hmm
Always try to hold on to that. So
hmm Awesome. Awesome. Thank you, Dwight, for your time today. I
yeah, thank you,
appreciate
Rod.
you, and I'm sure I'll probably see you out there on the road. You've been listening to Rydog Steel Hour here on steelradio.org.